Thanks all. Takes us to one more report. And this is another private plan change from HLC. And this is, just checking the page number now, this is at 119, item 12. Thank you, Ross.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon. I just have a reasonably short presentation just to explain this private plan change request. So if we can just move on to the next slide. Oh, thanks, John. So Cadness Loop Reserve is in Northcote in the North Shore. It's about 1,750 square metre local reserve, zone, open space, informal recreation. It's 300 or 400 metres from the Northcote town centre, there in the bottom of the photo, the aerial, in a very walkable catchment. It's at the heart of the Housing New Zealand area in Northcote, which is undergoing extensive redevelopment as of now. There's a block of new housing is ready and occupied in the south of Cadness Street, where that brown area is in Cadness Street. The circle is obviously Cadness Loop Reserve, which is pretty close to the local schools as well. So this is, it's a local reserve. It's surrounded by part of Cadness Street, which is the loop that goes around the reserve. And that's the location which is the subject of the plan change request, if we can move on. Thanks. So the zoning and the unitary plan that's been established in this area is largely terraced housing and apartment building zone. You see there in orange, and Cadness Loop Reserve is in green. And that really recognises the proximity to the town centre, the walkable nature of the catchment, the topography and the ability to redevelop an area that's been arguably pretty underdeveloped over the last many years through the location of the state housing block. So the request by HLC is for a private plan change to change the zone on the bottom third of Cadness Loop Reserve from open space and formal recreation to terraced housing and apartment building zone, and to zone afresh 840 square metres of public road. That's part of Cadness Street's terraced housing and apartment building zone. Now this is in order to recognise agreed and resolved land exchanges and acquisitions that unlock the land for housing development, and also create, enable the creation of an enlarged Cadness Loop Reserve. So just to explain that in a bit more detail, on the left is the existing zoning, the open space zone with the road, section 2, which is a little bit hard to see. If I can, maybe I can't point to it, but maybe it's, oh, sorry. Sorry, if we could somehow go back to the presentation. Thanks, son. So, but there's a section of road, it's about 840 square metres, there's a section of open space, and the proposal on the right is to rezone that to terrace housing and apartment building zone. So north of that, areas which are in the lined area, the hatched area, which are the location of the sections that are location of the expanded Cadness Loop Reserve, which is a reorientation and reconfiguration of that open space as a product of the housing development plan. And just to explain that in context, this is the most recent Northcote housing development master plan by HLC, where this new open space reconfigured is located. There's new housing to the south in that block. And a number of consents have already been approved for the development of more intensive housing to the north and to the east of this location. And this plan change enables the development of the block that is south of the reconfigured open space. It's also a location that's been worked on for many years through the Council, Housing New Zealand and HLC with Panuku on a new framework plan for the whole of Northcote, which the HLC masterplan has been based. And this is a key part of the reference design plan for the Awataha Greenway project, which is the open space link right through the centre of Northcote. So the recommendation, when we assessed this private plan change request, we saw that there was an obvious opportunity to look at the rezoning of the open space to create the larger reserve in Cadness Loop. And in that case, we're seeing that there is a merit to adopt this private plan change and also to modify it to include the zoning from terraced house and apartment buildings to open space as part of the bigger reserve, and also to zone the public road open space, informal recreation. That's to recognise the land exchanges and acquisitions and secure the appropriate zoning for this new reserve. And I'll just complete with just highlighting where that modification that we're proposing for the plan change, if it's adopted, to include those sections which are part of the enlarged reserve. So it's completed as one whole package and something that that we believe as a recommendation that we wrap together as our proposed plan change. And it's something that the local board, the chair and the deputy chair, have supported this modification, as well as HLC support this approach. And this is in front of you today. And just in terms of, I think, the aspect of the cost, where does the cost lie for adopting a plan change in this case, we are suggesting that there is a cost sharing with HLC in this plan change processing going forward to recognise the benefits to the public as well as to the development program for HLC in Northcote. So thank you. I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you. Look, I'll move the recommendation. Councillor Hills, second, and we'll take some questions. All good? Sorry, Councillor Watson.
So the reserve area ends up being roughly the same as what it is now in the exchange, and it's not immediately apparent from the notes there, but I assume the facilities are either duplicated or improved that are already on that reserve, or are they unaffected? The basketball court, the playground, the rest of it.
Through the chair, the new reconfigured reserve is approximately twice the size of the existing Cadness Loop Reserve. Of course, that gets reoriented to a 90-degree movement, and so yes, it is certainly a significantly enlarged, although reconfigured and connected into what is the Greenway, which is the main outcome that has been sought for a long time, is to make that connection into the open space. The facilities that are on the reserve now, the section that is in the bottom third there, which is the THAB zone proposal, that's where the basketball court is, the half court, and obviously that will need to be relocated. The playground that's on there as well will need to be reconfigured. And so that process will be underway through our development program office, taking a lead on that redesign of the new and enlarged reserve imminently.
Just a kind of process question that occurs to me. You mentioned the local board chair and the deputy have given their seal of approval. You don't look for a more formal endorsement from the board as a whole, just in instances such as this?
Through the chair, the agreement that we have with the local board chairs is that I think in all cases now, all 21 local boards have delegated to either the chair or another board member the ability to feed into these reports to planning committee on plan changes, public or private. So we've worked closely with the local board services and the local board chairs and local boards to set up those delegations, because often with the private plan changes, we're under quite a tight time frame to get that local board input. So yeah, generally speaking, I think they've all delegated, and certainly in the case of Kaipatiki, delegated to, it must be the chair and deputy to make those decisions and provide that feedback to Planning Committee. Yeah.
Are there further questions, Member Namani?
Kia ora, just one. There's a road stopping involved in this mix, and I guess my question is, what happens if we move through this process now? What happens if the road stop shows that Māori owners are involved? Like, what will happen then?
Just through the chair, I think that the AT board back in December resolved to move forward with the road stopping procedure, but I think it's a 12 to 18 month process, which of course involves engagement with mana whenua and iwi. That will follow its course and will be decided through that process that they will follow. So the ultimate stopping potential ownership situation with that land is something that will be resolved in due course, as opposed to the zoning process, which is in front of us, that enables the land use change to happen. The road stopping and the agreements and the acquisitions will be following in due course through the standard processes.
Yeah, in the event, I guess my next question, in the event that we don't necessarily want a zone change or anything reconfigured, I'm just asked, what's the real life situation if we move this?
Through the chair, one thing that we would like to explore with AT, and we will certainly do that, is potentially having a joint hearing so that those issues in terms of road stopping and RMA rezoning can be looked at in an integrated way by the same panel. If that's not possible, then it may be that if road stopping doesn't proceed for some reason, or there's some reason why the road stopping can't happen, then I guess it does put the plan change in a difficult space, and that would come out in the plan change hearing. So I guess ideally you'd have them jointly considered. If that's not possible, then there is a risk that the plan change, if it's heard after the road stopping, the plan change may fall over, or if the plan change goes ahead and in some other form, then it may cause implications for the road stopping. So they're under different legislation. There's been very close discussions between Ross, HLC, Auckland Transport, Parks, and engagement with mana whenua to date. But yeah, ideally, we'll bring them together in a joint consideration, the road stopping and the rezoning. But if that's not possible, then there is some risk that it could unravel for one or the other, and that's just the nature of it.
Well, it's not necessarily the nature of it. I would have, you see, I have a dilemma in as much as that, where I would have thought there could be some simple information that could be provided that would have allayed that concern, because it could be a yes or a no, it is going to be or isn't going to be Māori land.
All we can say is that the general concept of reconfiguring the reserve and allowing some development on what's currently reserve has been worked through, and there has been extensive engagement with iwi through those processes under Auckland Council and under HLC. So there have been opportunities for the issue to be thrown up through engagement to date.
There's been clear engagement on telling mana whenua iwi that we are going to stop this road. Do you have any concern around that?
Well, as I say, the overall master plan, the concept, the realignment of the reserve, that's been presented to iwi. Yep. Ross, you might be able to add, has the specific road stopping conversation been had? I couldn't answer that. Ross, you may be able to.
I'm not aware of the specifics around a road stopping conversation as part of this package here, but as John says, there is a fairly long running engagement and process of mana whenua forum discussion in Northcote and the other HLC locations to get to the point where the master plan for housing has been supported, the Awataha Greenway design plan has been approved by council, HLC, local board, and iwi have been certainly part of the inputs and involvement in the design process that have led to that outcome. So it's not something that HLC have specifically made us aware of in relation to the road stopping with their engagement process with the iwi.
Look, if we could take a note, we need to be picking up on those points in the next stage, subject to this being adopted here today. I think we need to record that concern, please. Councillor Wayne Walker. No, thank you. Member Henry.
Thanks, Chair. Just a quick question. So which comes first, doing this or doing the stopping? Because if you change, if you accept the plan change, how does that affect the other process? So I'm just trying to figure out chicken and egg.
Well, through the chair, we're running them in parallel, basically. We have Auckland Transport working with HLC on the road stopping and the realignment of the reserve. And we're bringing this to you as a plan change. So I guess they're running in parallel. And as I mentioned before, we will look at whether it makes sense to have them jointly determined at a hearing on both road stopping and rezoning at the same time, so that we can bring them together. But they're on parallel pathways through different, so the road stopping isn't through this committee, whereas the rezoning is. And so we'll see if we can bring them together at a joint hearing, as I mentioned before. But if that's not possible, there is a risk that one comes unstuck and therefore, or not unstuck, but one heads in a different direction, and therefore the other one will also have to head in that same direction.
Councillor Hills. Speak. Okay, we'll open up debate. Councillor Hills.
I know, I'll just be quick. Thank you for bringing this for us, and just to let Councillor Watson know that the local board is, as far as I know, fully supportive. That's about the whole master plan. It's a larger reserve, but it also connects into the Greenway, which has been a project on the books for more than 10 years, which the whole design of the Northcote Master Plan, the working with HLC and with Housing New Zealand and with Panuku and everyone in the community, has been taken along for many years on this before all those partners were together. I think this is a fantastic step forward. It actually opens this whole reserve up, connects it with the Greenway instead of being a small landlocked reserve that only a few people probably knew about. It obviously is in our, one of the most vulnerable communities in our ward, and the most diverse community. And I think that to get this sort of investment and this is one of the last bits of connections or puzzle pieces that need to be so we can get on with this work. Obviously the Greenway, the Awataha Greenway has and will be a significant positive asset to the community, and open up that green space, open up the connection back to the water, and get rid of all that concrete. So I think this is another exciting plan that you've got here that hopefully won't take too long, so we can get on with the work that Northcote has been waiting for a long time. So thank you.
Thank you. Look, good work here, and it's delighted to hear that people are prepared to adopt this plan change rather than just accept it, because the public benefit here is enormous. I think it's around about a 40% increase in open space provision, but just the whole urban design will be significantly improved. So it's moved and seconded. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Contrary, no. Declare that carried. Just check. All done. And that concludes our meeting. Thanks for everybody's contributions today. Thank you, staff, all of our staff, and close the meeting.